All right, Luke Thomas from Morning Combat, CBS Sports and Showtime, joined now by performance coach, strength and conditioning coach, whatever you want to call him. He's a coach to the stars, the fighters, and many other folks. It's Phil Daru. Hi, Phil. How are you?
What's up, Luke? Thanks for having me. First of all, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing quite well. All right, Phil, we want to connect in Vegas. It didn't work out, but here we are talking now. A lot of different questions about a lot of different things I want to get to. But first things first, you trained Dustin Poirier. You've been training Dustin Poirier for a really long time. He didn't really get tested in this fight, but just as an overall observation, what did you make of the fight itself?
I mean, I felt like it was going our way. I know a lot of people may say differently, especially his camp, but I really was looking at his poise, his timing, his accuracy, how well he was establishing his dominance inside the cage after he got that takedown. Obviously he's better on the ground than Conor is, but for me, I was very confident in the way the fight was unfolding. Unfortunate to a degree that it ended like that, because I know that Dustin could have finished him off in the right fashion, but again, it's a win nonetheless. But when it comes down to, as I'm looking at it from the outside in, and I was there to see it live, watching him kind of take control of the fight, especially after that takedown or, that failed attempt from Conor, being able to control him on the ground was really important to see, because, that's really where Dustin can shine in the fight. If this does go a fourth fight, I believe that that's where we're really going to want to take it for the most part, and then ultimately get a submission or just a finish off of that.
What's kind of surprising to me, and I want to get into some of the training specifics here in just a second, but what's kind of surprising to me was obviously Khabib has a very different style of control, and in the first round of their fight, I don't think he was looking to land hardly any ground and pound. He was looking to control him, set up some passes, maybe some dominant positions, but not a whole lot else. Okay, but that aside, what kind of surprised me was Dustin did a lot better on the ground than Khabib, and obviously, we all know and respect Khabib's abilities. What do you make of that? Is it just different styles, different applications, different Conors? How do you square that a little bit?
Could be that. I mean, I don't want to talk bad about another man. I think that with Conor, I think that his time is limited in the fight game. Honestly, I think that with both fights, he was very. He had a lot of passion. He had a lot of enthusiasm to win, as opposed to the last fight with Dustin. I think he was overlooking Dustin in a lot of ways because he was worrying about the Pacquiao fight. But this one, entirely, I think that he was just trying to go too hard in a sense. And for that, once you got him down, Dustin is really good on the ground, man. People really, obviously you have, there's levels to it. Dustin is a black belt. But I think that also the strength there and understanding leverages and understanding, where he needs to be and placing his shots accordingly, may cause the difference there. But I mean, again, Khabib is one of the best in the world. Obviously, is the best in the world when it comes to grappling. But again, styles make fights, and so it might be different from that perspective.
Okay, let's talk about the training ahead of time. We really actually wanted you to we wanted to get you on Friday's show, but the one thing that occurred to me from a cardiovascular perspective is, again, this was not your first camp with Dustin. You've been working with Dustin for years, but the thing that I was thinking about most about this fight is where does Dustin have the biggest advantages? We thought on the ground, didn't know how easy he would get it there, but the one that really stood out to me was third round, fourth round, and if he gets there, fifth round. That's where Dustin's going to really have the afterburners that Conor is not. When you thought about the game plan and your needs as a trainer to match that, what were you guys thinking about? We need to really make sure, not that he ever has bad cardio, but that you really had to dial in, 20th minute performance. Was that a big priority?
Yeah, I mean, we're always, because I don't think that there hasn't been a fight in the past, 10, 11 camps that we haven't been having to get ready for a 5-round fight. So with that, he's always prepared. He's always coming into camp conditioned, and that's because he always is training. He has a genetic, predisposition, I guess you would say, to having a better gas tank. He has that just from birth. Now bringing that into an ability to create power and power endurance and having to repeat power throughout a long duration is really where we want it to shine. Being able to knock him out either in the first round or the fifth round, because he has recoverability. He has the ability to recover between rounds, but also between bouts of high intensity energy outputs. So with that, that was really the main focus, was being able to either get a takedown, control the ground, having to stand up, and then being able to spark on him again if he needs to. And that's repeatable throughout time. And we needed to do it for 25 minutes. So yeah, that was that was one of the main focuses. Another focus that we wanted to look at is his ability to be elusive, movement. You know, when you talk about overall mobility and range of motion, that's going to give us a base of understanding of like how he can move and move efficiently, and then being able to get in and out of the pocket. You know, we knew that, you know, with Dustin, he's really good at his boxing. He understands distance. He knows timing. He knows, he knows where to put, place his shots. And we know Conor is very athletic. We know that he's explosive. But if we can use, our footwork to our advantage, and we can avoid, some of those kicks that he's throwing, and circle out and angle out, that's going to be better for him. And then he can place his shots accordingly. So we're working on that, working on agility, working on, speed and timing of that nature. So that was really the focus. And then also what we call low-level plyometrics, where we're just trying to create more tendon stiffness and strength in the lower limbs. And not because we're trying to check leg kicks and make sure that he's strong there, but mainly is because you want him to be able to move and again, move fast and quick. And we can get in the shots, we can get out of positions, and he can be, functional there.
How, from the second camp, or I should say from the camp that you guys had in January to this camp, how different were they in terms of what you were targeting?
Weren't so much different. I know that Dustin, he came to me before the fight, before the camp started, and was like, I want to be in the best shape I can be in, and usually he asks me that all the time, or tells me that all the time. And but this time we were really honing in on, on his ability to control and to be able to recover fast. So like I said before, it's just those short bursts of power outputs followed by, a very incomplete rest. And that's what we call repeat efforts. And so we did a lot of things on the prowler, did a lot of things on the assault bike. And then again, with the plyometric drills, a lot of box jumps, a lot of hurdle hops, and continuous with very little rest. And that was really more of the focus this time around, as opposed to the last time around where, he just got a new hip, basically he's able to have more mobility. He has more range of motion in that hip. So I was trying to understand, where his body can be placed now, what we can do with the body of work that he has. And so we were working more of overall controlling each movement, controlling on, what positions he can do, and then create force from those positions. But now, since we have that position and we have those joint prerequisites, now it's time to hone in on the speed and the agility that he can, attain from movements that he has.
So how does it work? I mean, Dustin's an accomplished fighter, but he does have Mike Brown as a coach. And so I'm guessing that together they cook up a game plan, and then they tell you what the game plan is. And then you come up with a strength and conditioning program in the camp to cater to that. Like, how does that work? Where you all need to be on the same page?
Yeah, I mean, Dustin's a little different, man. Dustin really doesn't go off of all game planning. He likes to feel out the fight. He likes to see what he has in front of him first. So he really works on what he feels is important for him, and then from there he can go ahead and dictate what's the goal for the camp. But primarily, we want to always be working on similar attributes that are going to dictate his game planning or whatever he wants to accomplish inside the fight. He's always working on his boxing, and he's always working on his jiu-jitsu. The wrestling comes, through and through when it comes down to, for this one, is taking it to the ground. But it wasn't like a direct game plan, right? We had some things that, I know Mike had some things that he wanted to work on, checking leg kicks and making sure, because we knew that Conor was, planning on doing that. But it's very hard to dictate what's going to happen inside the fight until you get there. So with that, we really didn't have and I hate to say this, we didn't have a true game plan, but the goal was, all right, we need to make sure that we're elusive, we're strong in the clinch, and then we have the ability to go all 5 rounds. And then from there, I can dictate, whatever I want to do from a strength and conditioning standpoint. Daya and Mike can put together the game plan based around, what he wants to establish. But we're not really working to defend whatever Conor's doing. We're working to enhance the attributes that Dustin has and what wants to accomplish inside the fight.
You mentioned you're using the prowler, which for folks who don't know is a type of sled. What does the prowler do for you guys in training?
I mean, I use the prowler for everything, Luke. You know that. It's either strength work, power work, conditioning. So all it is basically a sled with 2 poles where you can put weight on there. And so now you have what we call horizontal force displacement. So as I'm pushing through, a plane of motion, it's allowing the muscles to work accordingly to whatever demands of the sport. when you're looking at like a takedown, right, a blast double, something along the lines of that, you need that horizontal force displacement. You need to be able to drive through your opponent and get it to the ground. And so for that, we're working those muscles that cross the joint to allow that motion to occur. And we're getting force through that motion with the added weight. So now I'm able to do that consistently over time, add weight, decrease weight, add speed, and then from there, depending on what the overall focus is for that particular time frame of the training, sometimes I'll go ahead and we'll throw heavy load on there where they'll go for a max effort push, right? So we do a lot of max effort, dynamic effort work, if you're familiar with conjugate, but primarily our focus is either high force or high velocity. And then from there, once we get the high velocities in, now we're talking about repeated velocity, which is going to be more power endurance, more speed endurance. And that's going to allow him to be fast and powerful throughout all 5 rounds of the fight. So the Prowler is a multifaceted equipment or machine that you could say is something that we use throughout the entire camp and in off camp, because again, I can use that for what we call general physical preparedness, or I can use that for sport specific training where we're getting closer to the fight. And I use that a lot because it's simple to do. The athlete doesn't need to have like a huge amount of technical efficiency, not like a snatch or a clean. It's just pushing a sled, and we get the best adaptations with it, right? So there's limited risk of injury and maximal efficiency as far as from an adaptation standpoint.
Interesting. It's kind of occurred to me as you were telling me about what you were trying to get Dustin prepared to do. To what extent is that the case basically for any high-level fighter in a 5-round fight, right? This ability to produce force and power consistently in repeatable ways over the course of time. Isn't that what you would want for anyone in virtually any weight class if they're in a 5-round fight?
Virtually, yeah. I would say for the most part, you definitely want the heavyweights and light heavyweights to have that through and through. Obviously, with the light heavyweights and heavyweights, the fights don't go that long most of the time. With the lighter weight guys, being able to have a high aerobic base, because they're definitely going to go for the later rounds unless they produce that one punch knockout power. Some of those guys do have it, but for the most part, a lot of the times the fight's going to go the distance. So we want to be able to, again, have speed, have power, but also have the gas tank to go through all those rounds and do it with high volume outputs, because there is a lot of volume when you're talking about the bantamweights, 135, 145, even 155. Right. There's a lot more volume that entails inside that fight, as opposed to the heavier guys. So, and girls too as well. So we're looking at more overall volume with the lighter guys and more power, but repeated power for the heavier guys and girls.
Let me ask you about Conor for just a second, and not in any kind of insulting way. Truly, I mean this from I was thinking about this. Have you ever trained any athlete, fighter or otherwise, who had I don't know if I want to call his injury catastrophic, but it's bad, right? Yeah. Where you're breaking the bones and they have to get a rod inserted and, however long it takes them to come back. Have you ever trained an athlete with any kind of extremity, either arm or leg, that's had that kind of a clean break?
I've had hand injuries, obviously hand breaks, things of that nature, but never something to that degree like that, like a Chris Weidman or Anderson Silva or Conor McGregor. And that's a very traumatic break. And with that, it's going to take a longer time. What he's going to have to do is build up the strength of the surrounding tissue first and foremost, because that's going to be his stability. So he needs more glute and hip strength. He's going to need more lower leg strength, but he's also going to need, his function back, and that's going to take time, right? His gait pattern is going to be off for a little while. He's going to be in crutches for 6 weeks. For that, it's looking at that from a long-term perspective and trying to build a solid program based around strengthening up those surrounding tissues while you're in the crutches. And that's kind of what I had to do with the ACL tear myself.
I was just about to say, yeah.
So I knew exactly what I needed to do to speed up the recovery process. And so you can only do what you can do. You can only control what you can control. And what you can control and work on is the things that aren't injured at the time, that are supportive of the issue, right? So for him, if he has full functioning strength in his foot, which again probably not, he's probably going to be in a cast. He's definitely going to have to work on his glute and hip strength. He's going to have to work on his core and trunk stability and strength, and that's going to help aid in the process there. Hamstring and quads too as well. But once he has function of his foot and he can start to, obviously dorsiflex, plantar flex, which basically up and down and actually crunch and create torque, that's where he's gonna really start to make progress overall. But yeah, that's a huge break.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Let's think about the other cases that we know of where guys have had the break. One would be Anderson Silva, but he was much older to him when it happened, right? Late 30s, early 40s. I'm not sure exactly what the time was. Gokhan Saki had it happen to him, or excuse me, it was Tyrone Spong. Tyrone Spong, I believe, had it happen to him in Turkey, and although he was relatively young-ish. And then you had Chris Weidman. We haven't seen him come back. Here's what I bring up. I don't know. You tore your ligament, but he broke a bone, which I'm told getting off of the bone is at least a shorter timeline, if not so much easier, but it's quicker in any way. But the thing is, it's like I don't think Anderson was really ever the same after that. But I don't know how to say that because he was also much older. What am I saying? Conor's 32. He'll be 33, I think, tomorrow. So let's say he's 33 years old. Do you think an injury like that is obviously you can come back from it, but if it was one of your athletes, would you have concerns to what extent they could do this over time?
Yeah, absolutely. Because even though if you look at it right now, Conor's not really doing well in MMA, right? He's had one win, I believe, in the last 2-3 fights. Is that it?
Something like that, yeah.
So I mean, he's not doing the greatest, and for that may be causing a concern, and also from a mental standpoint, from a psychological standpoint, now he has to battle back, and that's going to be the main issue is understanding it from a psychological standpoint. Obviously, he had to change his ways. He had to go from nice Conor to the bad guy Conor now again, and I think that plays a big role. If you look at it from a psychological standpoint, when somebody has to change who they need to be to give themselves confidence, there is some insecurities there, so that may play a role. Far from the injury itself. Now you throw the injury on top of that. Now he's not able to move like he wants to move. Can the bone grow back and grow back stronger? Absolutely. But is his mind going to grow back stronger is the true question. And so for that, we have to look at it. And it's going to be a long-term process. It's not going to be, a 6-month deal. It's going to take him a year really to get back fully and actually train, and also train without feeling the fear of it happening again. And so that's always going to be in the back of his mind, no matter what. He may say something different, but no matter what, it's always going to be in the back of his mind. Throwing leg kicks, throwing kicks up, by the elbow, things like that. That's going to bother him because, trust me, I still deal with it to this day with going and doing jiu-jitsu now and being in positions. I'm like, I don't want to tear my knee again. You know what I'm saying? So that's always an issue. With any injury, you're going to see that. But yeah, can he bounce back? He might. Will it be better than like an Anderson Silva because of the age? You do make a good point, but I don't think I think that with all the things going on right now in his life, it might be hard to do so.
I guess we'll have to see. Okay, so what's next for Dustin is the lightweight title. He's going to take on Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira, very different fighter than Conor McGregor in terms of the threats that he poses, although obviously he can strike as well, which is sort of a new wrinkle in his game. Again, it's a lot about doing repeatable actions over time in a kind of competent way. Is there anything different in your mind as you imagine what he might need for Charles Oliveira that would be very different from a preparatory standpoint than what he might need for Conor McGregor?
Oliveira's got a good gas tank. That's true too. He's got great jiu-jitsu. He's comfortable on the feet, standing up. I think if we get into the clinch though, however, just taking him down and then getting out of bad positions, not allowing him to get off and do jiu-jitsu on him like that, but gaining points on takedowns and being strong inside the clinch, dirty boxing and things like that, really letting off shots there. So I think strength will be a major factor for us, building up strength, building up real solid strength in the clinch. And Dustin really does have that, man. He's honestly, it doesn't look it to a degree. I mean, now he's obviously grown into his body, but when you grab him, you can feel the power and the strength that he has there. So I really want to look into that more isometric strength. And as far as like, the power and the power endurance stuff, that's always going to be there. We're always going to work that. But, from a focus standpoint, I'm going to start him off next week, and we're going to start doing an off-camp program where he's going to build up more maximal strength and more strength endurance.
I can't wait to see it. Last thing before you go, I see you are Instagram training Timberland, the famous record producer. How'd you get hooked up with him?
Funny thing, man, I had a fighter that worked with him, does pad work with him. And so he seen me on his Instagram and asked if I could come down and train him. And so, we've been training for about a year now and working more of like more gait pattern and understanding his body, because before, just being sitting on a booth all the time and doing his thing, his posture's off and his ability to move wasn't there. So now he's gaining so much more range of motion. He has more understanding of how to move efficiently, and it's going to obviously help him, bring the weight down. He looks great and he's feeling great, so I'm happy with it. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing what you're doing. I interviewed you years ago. You were just building, and now you have built to something pretty spectacular. So I congratulate you, and can't wait to see what happens with Dustin next. I know you're going to have him ready, and I look forward to seeing how he looks. Folks, if folks want more information from you, Phil, where can they get it?
You can go to my website, darustrong.com, and then Instagram is @darustrong, Twitter is @darustrong.
And I don't know how you could have missed it at this point, but if you've been living under a rock, there you go, everyone. You can find him there. Phil, always good catching up with you. Appreciate your time so much, and can't wait to see what's next.
I appreciate it, Luke. Thank you.
There he is.